Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the City of Southfield regular meeting of the Planning Commission for March the 22nd, 2023. Will we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Spence, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bernuti.
Present.
Ms. Goodwin-Dye.
Present.
Mr. Griffiths.
Here.
Ms. Gruber.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Dr. Stevens-Gunn.
Present.
Mr. Willis.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum to conduct business this evening.
Thank you. I'm sure everyone has had an opportunity to review our agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to accept our agenda?
To the chair. Motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Martin and seconded by Commissioner Bernuti that we accept today's agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Spence, are there any announcements and communications for today?
No, I have none at this time, Madam Chair.
All right. Can you give us a little background on public hearing for PSLU 23-0001?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to be presenting both the special use and the site plan for this project at the same time. As you're aware, you will be required to have a public hearing on the special land use portion, and then the site plan is just a discussion amongst the commissioners themselves. This project was before you a couple of weeks back. This is PSLU 23-0001, PSP 23-0001. Petitioner is Rocky Yeldu. The project actually spans two separate properties, 28830 and 28844 Northwestern Highway. This is at Northwestern and West 12 Mile Road. The existing zoning B3 general business. The special use request is to allow for a gas station with convenience store and carry out. The site plan portion deals with kind of the nuts and bolts of the plan itself. And so this is for the construction of a 5,445 gross square foot gas station with the convenience store itself. So this is a closer look at the property in question. There are three buildings between the two sites. The proposal is to demo those three buildings, combine the properties together, and then construct a brand new gas station. These are the existing conditions, both from Northwestern Highway and from West 12 Mile Road. As I noted earlier, the zoning is B3 general business, which does allow for gas stations, filling stations, and so on as special land uses. Future land use is regional mixed use. Comparison plan. The petitioner was asked to provide a map showing gas stations in the area. So this particular plan does show several of them. The proposed gas station is marked with the X. There's a Mobil, Sunoco, and then a BP gas station within the area. And then going both east and west, there are two more gas stations, a couple closer to Inkster Road, and then a couple more at the Telegraph Road area. Colored site plan. So this is the proposal for the site plan itself. The main building would be along the east property line, and then you do have the pumps with the canopy in the center of the property. They do have two entrance exits, one on 12 Mile Road, one on Northwestern Highway. If I can go back to the original plan here, you can see that actually there are three curb cuts on 12 Mile Road and actually multiple curb cuts on Northwestern Highway. So actually we're significantly reducing curb cuts, which means from a traffic standpoint, you don't have as many people slowing down, turning in or turning out of these areas. So going to two driveways actually helps that situation. The site plan itself, so this again is the detailed site plan with the dimensions. They do show one EV charging station. That will be at the lower portion, what would be the lower right side of the image itself. That one charging station will actually serve 2 different vehicles. So you can actually charge two vehicles from that one particular location. From the standpoint of waivers, the canopy in B3 for a gas station is required to be a minimum of 40 feet from all property lines. The canopy itself does encroach a little bit into those setbacks. Actually, if you go throughout Southfield, you'll see canopies that are actually as close as 4 feet to a property line. Mostly because you can see underneath them. They don't block views, they don't screen view. In this case, the petitioner will be looking for 2 waivers for setback. One waiver would be, let's see, on the northwestern side, they're looking at about an 11-foot waiver of setback. And then on the 12-mile side, they're looking for a 7-foot waiver of setback. Other than that, they meet the rest of their requirements for parking, for landscaping and such. A little closer view of the landscaping. They are providing the required screen hedge along Northwestern Highway and along 12-mile road. So there's significant landscaping occurring on this site should this project move forward and be completed. Proposed elevations. Photometric plan and the floor plan. With that, that kind of takes care of staff's review. We can invite the petitioner up to make his comments on why he would like to construct this project.
Good evening. Joe Kane from Fieldstone Architecture with Rocky Eldo. So changes from the last time we were here. We made some adjustments to the site plan to pick up review comments that were made by the planning department from the letter dated February 27th. Some of those adjustments include providing a concrete pad with a bench and trash receptacle for the smart bus transit stop out at 12 Mile. We decreased the parking stall depth from 18 feet to 16 feet to decrease the amount of paving. We omitted the beer cave from inside the convenience store. Provided a dumpster enclosure plan and elevations in the drawing submittal. Provided a plan and elevation of the EV station. Provided parking and barrier-free details. Also, we addressed the fire prevention comments. We relocated the loading zone out of the fire apparatus access lane. And we also relocated the EV charging station to put it furthest from the gas pumps. When we were here last, some of the comments, we provided the market study report that shows this would support the area, even with the 2 other stations that are nearby, as well as the 2 on the west and the 2 on the east. We've provided a map, as Mr. Spence has indicated, with the adjacency gas stations. And we also provided a plan. There was a question about providing more detail of the floor plan, so we provided a detail of how the carry-out space would be. So, open up to any questions.
Okay, what we're going to do is open the public hearing first, and then the commissioners will have an opportunity to ask questions. At this point, I'd like to open the public hearing for PSLU 23-0001. Any public that wish to comment, please approach the podium. Please state your name and your address, and you have a 3-minute limit on your comments. Thank you.
Hello, Megan Denha. Megan Denha.
spell your last name for me?
D as in dog, E-N-H-A. N as in Nancy, H as in happy, A as in
Okay,
apple.
and then your address.
4440 Cherry Hill, Orchard Lake, 48323.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
As one of the councilmen had previously discussed at the last meeting, he made a key point, and he said that you guys may be concerned with how many gas stations there already are in this area. I believe that there's about 3 dozen, and I think that that's a concern that shouldn't just be looked over whatsoever. This would simply overpopulate and, monopolize the industry as to the gas station owners that have been in the city of Southfield, hard workers, taxpayers for 20-plus years. And there are several gas stations within a short range of where petitioner is planning on building and operating this station. And furthermore, the petitioner is intending to cause, an immense amount of environmental damage and potentially oil contamination to a property that hasn't had that type of contamination yet, or in the past, I should say. And if I'm being candid with the council, my late father built and operated the BP gas station that is in close proximity to the gas station that's going to be built. But he did not convert the use of that land. It was previously a marathon. Prior to that, it was previously a speedway. So when he, decided to build and operate it, that land was already contaminated. And I say that because I kind of know firsthand what that environmental damage does and how grave it can be and the impact it can have. And furthermore, there is a Walgreens not too far away from where this gentleman is intending to build this gas station, and that Walgreens was previously a gas station, and I believe that the tanks are still there, and it's been environmentally contaminated. So there is a possibility that this council may be sitting in the same position in the next couple years, because I'm also a commercial real estate attorney, very familiar with the area, and I understand that Walgreens is going to be leaving their lease very soon, and if I had to bet, I would say that it was going to, reconvert into a gas station, which is what's traditionally seen, especially with drugstores of that sort. So in short, I know that, there have been restrictions on built collision shops in certain cities because they're overpopulated, and I'm simply here to ask the council to take that under consideration, as I think that we're going to face a similar issue in these circumstances. So much appreciated. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Is there any additional public comment during this public hearing for PSLU 23-0001? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Given none, I'm closing the public hearing for PSLU 23-0001. Commissioner Martin.
I have a question with the use of it, the gas station. Previously, there was a discussion about a gas station going in at Northwestern Highway and Franklin Road, right across the street from the Marathon gas station. And at the time, I believe the city had discussed looking at the concentration of gas stations in the area, because with the one that was approved, there would be 4 gas stations in the immediate area. And looking at this gas station, they would put 5 in the immediate area. Has the city taken any activity to look at limiting the number of gas stations within an area?
Yeah, actually, no, we have not. So as it stands right now, there's no limitation on gas stations. It's a B3 use. It goes through the special use process, just like we're going through tonight. But no, there has been no direction given to staff from the council to look at a potential for limiting gas stations in the city.
That was basically I'm sorry, let me go back. And speaking of contamination, I know that we have the other gas stations, I don't know of any environmental reports where there was contamination at those gas stations. Does the city have any knowledge of any contamination at those gas stations?
That I don't know offhand, unless, I mean, there would have to be some kind of environmental report,
Yeah.
a leak, underground storage tank leak that generally we would be made aware of. But I have not looked at any files for those particular locations to see if they've had those.
Okay, I mean, only because the individual during the public hearing brought up the point of there being contamination. I just want to have this council, have the planning commission aware of any contamination that has gone on in those areas, and if and when those were done and and that they were rectified. That's all.
Commissioner Gruber?
I agree. I also am concerned about the number of gas stations.
Okay.
That's my only concern.
Commissioner Willis?
You had made I'm sorry, you had made a comment about the number of charging stations, that there's one charging station. Where will the person wait for his vehicle to charge?
In the parking stall. There's a designated parking stall for that.
Okay. Do you have any idea how long that would take? Based on today's technology, again, I'm not.
Probably an average of 15 minutes, and as the technology develops, and that's what we spoke last time, they told us not that we were trying to put a whole bunch of them at once. And the technology is constantly upgrading itself within days. So we're putting the two, and as it gets faster, so a Tesla's making one eventually that's going to fit everybody's, and all these things are coming to place. So, it takes like 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
An average car takes 10 minutes to fill up, so it's...
I imagine it depends on
how much you need.
How much
If
you
someone gets in, 8 gallons of gasoline, takes 5 minutes. Someone wants to fill up, takes 10 minutes. It's the same thing. So it's going to be about the same average, and then they wait in their cars usually. They can come in and buy a beverage or so, and by the time you come out, it's done. Same type thing.
In the event you need more of the electrical chargers, do you have a plan for where they will go?
They will go in the same place. We had talked to
Right.
Mr. Spencer about it. We're prepped for it. So as the demand increases, we're prepped for that. And
That's
we're
correct.
set up for
Yeah.
parking spots
We
as
have
well.
we have a few extra parking spaces anticipating that we would convert those to
Eventually.
eventually.
Without falling below the need for
That's
parking
correct.
spaces?
Yes,
Okay,
we would not
fair
need
enough.
need
We
to
have
request it.
additional spaces at the end too if we want to ever add, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Griffiths?
I do question how many gas stations is enough gas stations. I also have this kind of unofficial, I guess, opinion that gas in the city of Southfield seems to be much more expensive than anywhere else around here. So I don't try to buy gas in the city of Southfield. It's kind of weird. So I don't know, but the market is going to dictate that. I guess until our ordinance puts a limit on it. That's my only comment. I don't know how many is too many. There's a lot of them. From a site planning point of view, I think this is it's a good site plan. It's eliminating a bunch of extra curb cuts, like we said. It's taking away a dry cleaners, which is a different kind of environmental concern. I'm sure you're forced to clean that up properly. So I think the site layout itself is maybe one of the better gas station layouts we've seen recently. It's got a lot of space. It's got a lot of parking. So I think from a site plan point of view, this is a good project. I think it's fairly, nice looking building, modern. But I guess, how many gas stations do you need? That's what it keeps coming back to.
Commissioner Goodwin Dye?
I'm with them, because we approved a gas station to be built, last year in the same area. So why do we need so many gas stations in that one area? And then I agree about the contamination. I worked for General Motors. I retired from a factory. And for them to build something else on that site, they had to remove all of that soil and replace it. Okay, so is this, if it doesn't work, is this going to limit what we could do with that property or someone else? Is it always going to have to be a gas station? Though, that's my concern.
Planner Crowd?
I have a couple comments and questions if all the commission members are done or when they're done.
Okay. Commissioner Bernuti?
Thank you. In reference, you said that there would be one electrical charging area for one car. If-
Two cars.
Two cars. All right, if there are other cars waiting, where would they wait? And would there be a backup of any kind? You know, while they're waiting?
Like I said, we have a little bit of a surplus of parking, so they would be able to park.
On that same side?
Yes.
As the demand increases, as it's set up now, that serves the demand for electric, as the demand increases, then you add more. Same as gasoline pumps. You increase them based, you go bigger on demand.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Commissioner Martin, you have another question?
Yes, and I apologize for forgetting the first time. You mentioned that the dry cleaners is going to be removed. Have there been any contaminations, or has that spot been evaluated for potential?
It has, yes. So there's been a Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental study done on the entire property, and there is contamination with that, the cleaners.
There's what's called a chemical.
Yeah.
Chemical.
Right. So, outlined in the environmental is steps that has to be taken to remediate the environmental issues before anything can be done there.
What type of time frame will it take to remediate those areas?
30 days, as from, it's pretty much removing the dirt to a certain level and dispersing it at a proper facility due to the type of chemicals that a dry cleaner is drive. So even if you were to put a Starbucks there,
Well, I'm aware of.
they would do the same exact
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the same exact thing, no matter who develops the property, if it was developed. And if it wasn't, eventually, somebody has to do it. So it has to go.
And you, as the new owner, have to pay?
Incurs
Have
that
to do it,
cost, yes.
That's right.
It's kind of shameful that the previous owner that did the contamination
Yeah,
doesn't have,
sorry.
that's
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And I make a comment too about with the gas station going in there and contamination. Today's technology is with the fuel tanks, the older tanks were steel or rusted out, and that's,
20 years ago.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where your environmental issues are coming from. Today's technology, they're all polyurethane.
20 years ago, they started this thing, so it's all state mandated. Everything has to be a double fiberwall glass as of 30 years ago. And then 10 years after that. So whoever didn't have it, you were concerned with the other gas stations that are in the area. They should all be up to date because those are state
Those are
mandated.
requirements,
So if they don't, they can't be operating. If there was a leak in the area, they had to step in, and MUSTA, which, oversees the jurisdiction of that, has to get one there. So,
And they're all built in with alarm systems and everything else to.
yeah, without our control, that's what you have to do in order to do it, whether it costs $1 or $10 or $1 million, you gotta do it.
I assume also with the automatic shut-off to the pumps in case
All of
there's.
that, yeah. All state
all the-
mandated by the fire department controls. You must take quarterly reports of leaks and da-da-da-da-da, and then fire and all that. It's all, the state keeps adding rules, so you gotta do a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioners, are there any other questions or comments? No. Okay, I have one. I requested the last time you were here about the modifications to the floor plan as it relates to the food services and stuff.
Meals
Yeah,
and grab
yeah.
and goes.
I see that you added a women's and a men's bathroom, and I see that you added some coolers, but I don't see the other part. Can you tell me where that is?
So we provided, I'm not sure, Jeff, if you have that or not, we provided a food service equipment plan that showed the carryout.
I believe it should, yeah, it should have been on there, and then there should have been some
Yeah, but
motivational.
so the center section where the merchandising shelves, that still would be, in the design process as we develop, but there would be, refrigerated, open coolers for.
Fresh food.
Fresh food, grab and go.
here.
Fresh fruits.
Here.
In those three compartments, right, when you walk into the door, the rectangulars.
Right here.
Can I
Is
can I
that
approach
where
to
it
see where
is?
you're pointing?
Yeah, please, because I want to see where you're talking. Okay,
Yeah, so, yes, that would be the
Okay.
merchandising area, so you would have, shelves with chips and stuff like that, and you would use them at open coolers for grab and go sandwiches, salads,
okay,
fruits.
that's what we had talked about
Yeah,
before.
but this area didn't change.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you,
And-
Is that
thank
the
you.
service area next to the left, the laboratories?
Yes,
The counter, okay.
that would be the made to order, and then
Yeah.
along the way would be the fresh prepared meals.
Okay. All right, thank you. Planner Crowe?
Yes, thank you through the chair. As you may be aware, council has directed us to investigate beer, liquor, and wine sales at gas stations. And as we continue to do this study, we know the industry is changing. We still know there's going to be diesel cars around. There's this 300 million cars that'll need gas, but that'll be tapering off. I think overall gas sales are down. EV chargers and stations are going up, and probably the likelihood of the future of these enterprises is going to be in the retail sales, similar to like a 7-Eleven. So with that being said, could you tell us what your projected retail sales versus gas is in a percentage of one versus the other?
We sent a marketing study that breaks down the exact sales of gasoline versus diesel trucks versus convenience. And that was done by a company that does probably 3,000 of these, in the past 20 years.
Right, so can you just give us a high-level summary of what that is in comparison? Because I think the trend's going to be that if the gas stations goes away, these
convenience,
quick
yeah.
drop-in retail sales will still be there and viable and be permitted by right. And slowly, there'll be more and more EV charging stations as the gas pumps start to go away.
So, are you looking?
I would say your convenience sales is going to outweigh your
Yeah.
sales in fuel.
They're predicting a heavy,
As to how
heavy,
much?
heavy number, if not heavier than what they've already
Right.
showed.
So they've got a 1-year projection and then a 3-year projection.
So could you share that with, this is a public meeting it's being
So are you,
broadcast.
are you, are you looking for numbers, or are you looking
Just
for percentages?
Percentages. Is it 50-50 now? Is it
I
going to
would
be
say,
60-40?
There. So you mean, food sales, well, that's percent,
Well,
1 year
yeah.
is 14.5%.
So a
but-
total, so a total of 32, so a total of like 50% between the two.
Yeah.
And that's just projections, and they think it's higher, but they had to put a basic number. So it seems to be 50-50 at this point.
So it's currently 50-50 with the trend that retail is going to outpace gas sales.
It's
a
doing
fair-
that every day.
Is that a fair summary?
It's happening every day.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we're hearing.
That's why the concept of food and fresh
Sure.
food and that
Now-
convenience.
So, I mean,
What-
if you want numbers, you look at, for year one, fuel, 150,000,
Diesel.
Convenience stores, close to 200,000, so
So
150 to
you're-
200.
So within a year, the projections are retail is going to outpace gas sales.
It's doing it now.
Yeah. And then, this gets to why do we need another gas station? What does the marketing study say about the need? Obviously, as Mr. Griffiths has pointed out, this is a larger lot. We're building from scratch. We got much better traffic circulation on the site. We're cleaning
So I
up
have
some
to
old
answer that.
antiquated businesses. But what else can you share that lends itself to having another gas station in this area?
So the fact that there's a lot of gas stations in the area is agreeable The fact that northwestern highways such as Telegraph Road shares two different roads. So the traffic studies that we did were 48,000 cars going that way, 48 cars going this way. The corner of 12 Mile had 27,000 cars. Total of 77,000 cars only going that way. And we're the only gas station going that way, including the young lady that was there, which is second to us. Everything else goes that way, which in turns on these roads, and we live in probably a very fast-paced society. Nobody wants to turn and come back and go back and deal with the traffic. So nobody's serving this purpose for one thing. For the second thing is the type of operation we're putting up. It's going to serve the neighborhood. There's nothing in the neighborhood to serve such a thing. So that's the reason why we feel strong about the demographics of the area. As the gentleman said, they approved another one, so there's 3 going that way, 2, 3 small ones, and they approved another small ones. I honestly don't feel there's a purpose or a need for that one, because they're going that way. We don't have a competitor. There's 2 of us there, and we're serving the community. You know, and that makes a big difference on demographic of travel. That's why it's a good location.
Okay. Planner Crowd, anything else?
Yeah, just, that's like the large point that I wanted to make. And then just clarify, I thought when we talked about the charging station that it has 2 ports, so it can handle 2 spaces, correct?
That's right. That's correct.
And that we would make sure that that was accessible, barrier-free, the first one.
It is.
And they're handicap accessible.
Yeah. So it wasn't clear when you were saying you're only having 1 charging station, that it's actually serving 2
It's-
cars.
Yeah.
And then you have the ability to expand, I believe, up to 6 stations
Correct,
or 12 cars, correct?
correct.
All right, that's all I wanted to point out, is that the industry is changing. More and more of the sales are the retail component versus gas. And even if the pump went away, that actually would create the ability to have more parking probably on the site. If I know in the past, the 7-Eleven was the highest grossing per square foot, and I see these fast grab convenience stores is a similar model for shopping.
Okay. Mr. Spence, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. With regard to PSLU 23-0001, excuse me, the Planning Department does recommend favorable recommendation of the special land use request of Rocky Eldu on behalf of the owners for the construction of a 5,445 gross square foot gas station with convenience store, property located at 28830 Northwestern Highway and 28844 Northwestern Highway. Suitable parcels 2418226.001 and 2418226.036, southwest corner of Northwestern Highway and 12 Mile, for the following reasons and conditions. Subject to site plan conditions of PSP 23-0001, gas station operations are proposed to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Submitted special use and any conditions recommended by the Planning Department and Planning Commission will be of such size and character that will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of a B3 General Business District. Location, size, intensity, and periods of operation of the proposed use is designed to eliminate any possible nuisance likely to emanate therefrom, which might be adverse to the occupants of any nearby permitted use. Proposed use is in accord with the spirit and purpose of the chapter and is not inconsistent with or contrary to the objectives sought to be accomplished by this chapter and the principles of sound planning. Proposed uses of such character and vehicular traffic generated will not have an adverse effect or be detrimental to the surrounding land uses or adjacent thoroughfare. Proposed uses of such character and intensity and arranged on the site so as to eliminate any adverse effects resulting from noise, dust, dirt, glare, odor, or fumes. Proposed use will not be adverse to the promotion of the health, safety, and welfare of the community, and the proposed use is designed and operated to provide security and safety to employees and the general public. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
To the chair. Motion to approve PSLU 2223, I'm sorry, PSLU 23-0001.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Martin and second by Commissioner Willis that we accept the favorable recommendation of PSLU 23-0001. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now you have the site plan itself. I'm not sure if there's any additional questions
Are
or
there
comments related to the site plan.
Okay, it appears that Commissioner Willis and Commissioner Martin have questions. We'll start with Commissioner Willis.
Thank you. First of all, we have a sign ordinance, so I just started with that. The building, when you are approaching it from the west, you can see the large back end of the building. It is two colors. First of all, I'm going to say it's attractive. I like that. But it seems to be an ideal spot for some form of art. It's going to be seen from maybe a quarter of a mile away. It's going to be a landmark, in fact, because I think it's the only thing that you can identify as an independent structure. So had you considered any form of art or anything like that so that you don't have this monocolor that's shown when you're driving up?
We're open to do that. We suggested that we were going to contribute to the art committee, and we're also looking at getting suggestions or even help from the city of what we should commission there. We would like to do that.
Well, I'd like to be a builder, but I can imagine a great big orange there or something, just something to identify
Back from the
that
future,
food is there.
what's that car? Back from the future, the guy, John, what was that guy, that GM guy that created the Back from the Future, the car?
John DeLorean.
John DeLorean.
Okay,
One of those, something like that would be nice.
I think it would add
Back
to
from the
it.
future,
Okay,
would
but
be
that's my
nice.
only comment.
Thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
On the floor plan, on the lower right-hand corner, can you go to the floor plan inside the store? Do you have a stairway to the mezzanine?
Yes.
Is there a second floor to this building?
There's a mezzanine that would be over the right-hand side of the building for
There's
storage.
nothing there. That's all we have is the stairway. So
Yeah.
how is that gonna look, or what is it?
So that stairwell would just go up, there would be no offices, nothing, it would just be storage, mezzanine only. It
Is
would
a
be
room?
Just one large room
one
that would
open
be
space.
from the back of the cooler freezer to that wall on the right.
It would basically be closed in to the
You would never-
business
yeah.
or glass or whatever looks proper. It's used for storage.
From the drawings that we have, you can't tell that there's a wall or anything.
Right, we can
The
reflect
size of it, so,
That's a good
there's
point.
nothing to delineate
Sure.
how the size and shape of the room.
Very true.
It's just the stairway that you could tell and nothing else. So
Very-
that needs to be clarified.
Sure.
We'll do it.
Commissioners, are there any other questions or comments regarding PSP 23-0001? Planner Crowe?
With our investigation of allowing for beer, wine, and liquor, we're going to be eliminating any outside storage at all. In the past, many of these gas stations had a service base where they would allow for automotive accessories to be sold outside. So our recommendation is going to include no outside sales of any kind, whether it's ice, windshield wiper fluid, wipers, any of that stuff. So I just want to make sure that you are aware of that, and everything has to be contained within the interior of the building.
Sure.
Commissioners,
And
Commissioner Martin?
To continue my question, along with that, is there anything to indicate that that's for employees only, so that the stairway there isn't just,
Yeah, that would be, there's a door that goes back to that area.
That's the back space.
This is the back space, so it would only be accessible by the employees.
It's strictly back space.
Okay, so really and truly, that needs to be
Oh,
identified,
yeah,
'cause
that sounds right.
yeah, because the way it's diagrammed is it's open, and you can see it, and you can access it, so.
Yeah, no, there's a door, well, it's back in the prep area of the carryout is the access door to that area, as well as at the top of the page by
So,
the, yeah.
So you're saying those doors block?
Those are the only two doors, and those would be secured doors, correct?
Okay.
Normally, people can't go through those, and even if we didn't have a mezzanine.
Well, yeah, I understand, but what I'm saying
Sure,
is
it's gotta be
having the
explained, yeah.
mezzanine there doesn't, okay,
gotta be
thank you,
explained.
yeah. But that's something that needs to be clarified in
Okay,
the
yeah, we'll
in the
include
diagram.
that. We'll also include a note on the floor plan with no outside storage.
And
Yeah, just through the chair, just a clarification.
Yes.
No outside storage or sales.
Right.
And then I agree with Commissioner Martin about getting us a second floor
Clarifying.
plan that says mezzanine for storage and employees only.
Commissioners, are there any other comments or questions? Mr. Spencer, you have a recommendation for PSP 23-0001.
Yes, I do. Just give me a second here. I believe that we probably want to add a new condition to this with regard to the mezzanine,
Yes,
to be used for employee and storage only. Is that what was discussed?
and no outside sales.
I have that already,
Yeah.
sir.
And diagram.
Okay, thank you.
But
So with regard to PSP 23-0001, there's been some modifications done, so what's shown on the screen is going to be modified a little bit to what is currently there, but I'll at least read into the record. So with regard to PSP 23-0001, the Planning Department does recommend favorable recommendation of the site plan review request of Rocky Yaldu on behalf of the owners for the construction of a 5,445 square foot gas station with convenience store property located at 28830 Northwestern Highway, 28844 Northwestern Highway, suitable parcels 2418226.001, 2418226.036 on the southeast corner of Northwestern Highway and West 12 Mile Road for the following reasons. Subject to special use conditions of PSLU 23-0001. Following waivers shall be required from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Waiver of 10 foot 9 inches of setback for pump canopy on the Northwestern Highway side of the development, 40 feet required, 29 feet 3 inches proposed. And a waiver of 7 feet of setback of pump canopy on the 12 Mile Road side of the development, 40 feet required, 33 feet proposed. Site shall be constructed in accordance with sheets A 0.1 and SP 1.1 by Fieldstone. Building is to be constructed in accordance with the submitted elevations shown on sheets A 2.1 through A 2.4 by Fieldstone. Landscaping must be installed in accordance with the approved landscape plan, sheets LS1 through LS3 by Felino A. Pascal and Associates. Any exterior lighting will be shielded to prevent spillage of glare onto adjacent properties. Photometric plans, drawings number 231117 V1 dated 1/27/23 by GB Associates are part of this approval. Existing bus stop on 12 Mile Road shall be improved to include a key walk, trash receptacle, and bench per city standards. Proposed bike rack shall be securely anchored to the supporting surface, shall be at least 3 feet in height and able to support a locked bike in an upright position. Prohibited activities include, but are not limited to, the following: sale of medical marijuana or medical marijuana-infused products, trailer renting or leasing, motor vehicle body repair, undercoating, painting, tire capping, engine rebuilding, motor vehicle dismantling, upholstery work, or other such activities whose adverse external physical effects would extend beyond the property line. This also includes prohibited sales of recreational use or adult use marijuana on this property. No storage or display of any kind shall be allowed within the street right-of-way. All displays shall be so located as to obstruct view of vehicles. There shall be no outside storage or sales of any kind. exterior convenience items such as ice chests, newspaper boxes, vending machines, propane tanks, cages, or similar, as determined by the planning director, are strictly prohibited. Ancillary retail sales of automotive and non-automotive products related to the primary use of a gas station shall be acceptable under the following guidelines: automotive accessories such as windshield washer fluid, motor oil, wipers, scrapers, and similar, as determined by the planning director. Non-automotive related products of single containers of various beverages, excluding alcohol, liquor, beer and wine, individual packages of sundries such as gum, candy, cigarettes, newspapers, excluding medical and adult use marijuana and medical and adult use marijuana products, etc., along with milk, eggs, bread, and other general grocery items, pre-prepared food items that are not subject to licensing by the Michigan Department of Agriculture or the Oakland County Health Department. Non-perishable items such as clothing, footwear, hats, music, and other general retail items not associated with dispensing of motor fuel are prohibited. Petitioners provide a sprinkler system for all landscape areas to encourage preservation of plant material. Petitioner is to execute a perpetual maintenance agreement for the landscape and parking areas both on site and in the right-of-way, which includes maintenance of any stormwater detention system. Petitioners to implement the recommendations made by the Southfield Police Department's Crime Prevention Bureau regarding site security. The approved site plan and/or building elevations represented herein does not constitute nor guarantee approval for signage. Separate approval and sign permits must be obtained from the building department for any proposed sign. The site shall be designed and developed to contain a public work of art in accordance with Section 5.22-3 Public Art, Article 4, General Requirements of the zoning ordinance, unless exempted based on the written stipulations. But I do believe the petitioner has noted that he will be making a donation to the art fund. One electric vehicle charging station shall be installed on site. And finally, the mezzanine shall be used for employee and storage only. Thank you.
Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
To the chair?
Yes.
Can we get a clarification before that?
Yes.
Right now, we have one electrical vehicle charging station. Do we need to include the expansion or showing? We're doing it for one station right now. Do we need to include the expansion, the availability to expand to more in this?
Planner Crowe.
Through the chair, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought there was a note on the site plan that shows future charging stations.
When we moved the EV stations from the west side to the southeast, we took off
We
that
took
note.
them,
Well, I think I think what I would suggest as a friendly amendment, one electric vehicle charging station servicing 2 vehicles, and that future EV charging stations be notated on the site plan.
only because they're.
Yeah, they were there before.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Griffith?
While we're clarifying things, is this reference to the prepackaged food, is in the health department and all that stuff saying they cannot prepare food like a quick service restaurant?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that they would have to go through Oakland County if they are preparing food fresh.
Okay, so we're not telling them they can't.
No, no.
In fact, I think we should be telling them they can because that's what they
Yes,
said.
they
they wanted.
can.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
It's a Department of Agriculture permit.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not
Yeah.
a true restaurant. It's-
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, is there a motion?
To the chair. Motion to approve PSP 23-0001 as recommended.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Martin and second by Commissioner Bernuti that we accept the favorable recommendation for PSP 23-0001. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Spence, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about PZTA 23-0001?
Yes, thank you. So this text amendment is to include a new property in the Northland, what would be the Northland Overlay Development District. So the image that you currently have before you does show the various districts within the Northland area. The shopping center in red, the lifestyle, innovation, Central Park, green space, and then the boundary district, which is in purple. The property located at 16025 Northland Drive would like to become a part of the boundary district for Northland. As you can tell on the map, it is directly across the street from the Northland Overlay Development District itself. And again, it would become a boundary district, and it would be subject to all the requirements of the Northland development and the Overlay Development District, which includes enhanced landscaping, enhanced materials. Actually, this project would be a lot nicer and take on the same qualities of Northland, except it would be on the corner of 8 Mile and Northwestern Highway. So we do see a benefit to it in that it does extend a little bit farther, and it does provide for, like I had noted, some enhanced look, better aesthetics along 8 Mile Road itself and Northwestern Highway. So the change here would be just a change to that section of the ordinance, 5.22-3, and then we would amend the map to include 16025 as a boundary district. Just a little closer look at the property in itself. It was the previous AT&T building, which is currently vacant. And you do have to have a public hearing on this.
At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for PZTA 23-0001. Is there any public interested in sharing their thoughts or comments regarding PZTA 23-0001? Any public interested in sharing their thoughts about PZTA 23-0001? Given none, I close the public hearing.
Through the chair.
Yes,
And again, I apologize if I'm repeating anything Mr. Spence has said, but this is the former AT&T building, which has been vacant for many years. We've had many different types of proposals. We have a similar type of proposal for, you'll see it in the near future, for storage and mixed use. But at least if we're able to breathe new life in this property, we'll have the streetscape and landscaping matching what's happening at Northland Development, so it becomes more of an integrated redevelopment of the entire site. So for those reasons, we think it makes sense to extend the district by one parcel at this point. We may be coming back to you in the future for other parcels on Northland Drive, but we weren't able to get support yet from the other property owners.
okay,
Thank you.
okay. Commissioner Bernuti?
No questions.
Commissioner Goodwin-Dye?
No questions.
Commissioner Griffith?
I always like the flexibility the overlay districts provide for redevelopment. So this is just step one. We get to review the project anyway when it's proposed. I think it's a good move to make it more marketable.
Commissioner Willis?
I'm just curious if the other property owners are resistant to an overlay or just haven't reached it?
Through the chair, just wasn't enough time to get their support to fully for them to fully understand what we were looking for. But we have a willing applicant that has put many months of study and expense to figure out how to get this going. So, of course, we wanted to at least lay the groundwork for the possibility that they could get somebody in there. And we had contemplated about going all the way down to 8 Mile, but we have support from the DDA on this parcel. We just, we might package the rest of the parcels at some future point. We just didn't have enough time to meet their timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gruber?
No questions.
Commissioner Martin?
No questions. At this time.
Okay, all right, commissioners, I need a recommendation.
Yes, yes, Madam Chair, you do. So with regard to PZTA 23-0001, the Planning Department does recommend favorable recommendation of the draft dated March 22nd, 2023. The proposed text amendment will amend Title V, Zoning and Planning, Chapter 45, Zoning of the Code of the City of Southfield to add property located at 16025 Northland Drive to the boundary district of the Northland Overlay Development District in Article 4, Section 5.22-3, Overlay Development District, and amend map number 1, Northland Overlay Development District Plan Map to include the site and any other amendments that may become necessary as needed for the City of Southfield. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, you've heard the favorable recommendation. Is there a motion?
Move for favorable consideration of PZTA 23-0001.
Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Martin Commissioner Willis, and second by Commissioner Martin that we accept the favorable recommendation of PZTA 23-0001. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving right along, we are on site plans now, PSP 22-0013.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this particular project, this is the Jack's Car Wash on Southfield Road, came before you a month, maybe a month and a half or so ago. And it was postponed to give the petitioner an opportunity to take a look at some possible options for his development. If you recall, he was looking to add another 17 feet to the east side of the building. There are concerns with regard to taking away area that currently is being used for drying of vehicles and would actually be pushing that closer to Southfield Road. So there was a concern about how vehicles, should they start to stack, where they would go. I do know that there was a suggestion made to look at the west side of the building for the potential of maybe adding on there and then maybe shifting the inside of what's going on and move that farther west, thus leaving that eastern portion of the building exactly where it is. The petitioner has not come back to the city, back to us with any kind of a proposal, any new plans. So it's going to be recommended this evening by staff that we postpone this item to no date certain, and we'll contact them and let them know that they have additional opportunity now to explore other options for this site. We would have to re-advertise, but instead of continually bringing it back again and again and again, we figure this is the best way to handle this at this time. Okay. So again, Planning Department is recommending postponing this item to no date certain.
Okay. Is there a motion?
To the chair. Motion to postpone PSP 22-0013 to no date certain.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Martin and second by Commissioner Bernuti that we postpone to a date uncertain for PSP 22-0013. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Spence?
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you tell me a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about PSP 23-0003?
So PSP 23-0003, this came before you earlier this month as well. Petitioner is Moshe Goldberg, property located 24275 Greenfield Road. This is on the northwest corner of Greenfield at George Washington. Existing zoning is OS Office Service. The site plan review request is for the conversion of the existing 4,830 gross square foot general office building to a medical office use, and the petitioner has actually also noted the potential for an urgent care on this particular property. It's coming before you. We never had a site plan on this property, so thus the conversion of the building to medical office is a change of use, and because we did not have a previous site plan, it had to go through this process with the Planning Commission and the Council. So a little closer look at the property itself. You can see the location of the building, its proximity to Greenfield, the number of parking spaces that are already on site as well. the existing conditions of the building, both from George Washington and from Greenfield Road. OS Office Services, I had noted, local mixed use for future land use. As we noted a couple of weeks ago, we had numerous concerns about this site. It's currently deficient and non-conforming for a number of reasons, including setback, landscaping, driveway widths, and such. One of the biggest concerns we had, though, however, was the parking deficiency. 22 spaces are required for the conversion of this building to medical office use, and 13 are shown on the site. So basically, they would be seeking a waiver of 9 parking spaces. So the site is short 9 spaces, which is 40% of the parking required for the use. We did do a study of surrounding uses, surrounding office buildings. The zoning ordinance does allow looking as far as 300 feet from the subject site to see if there's additional parking that might be available on any of those properties. Based on the study that we did, we found that none of these properties in the area would be able to provide any additional parking for this particular use to satisfy his deficiency. So we have that particular item. Again, parking was a major issue here. With that, we do have the petitioner here this evening to go over his project, and we'll turn the floor over to him.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you.
Before you start, can you pull the microphone up so we can hear you? Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. I'd like to also publicly wish condolences to Planner Crote on the sudden death and his extended family. He should be comforted from above. We met with planning this week, and obviously we couldn't invent currently at this time to overcome our parking limitations. All the neighbors have vacancies, so they won't lease out any of their additional parking, even though there is plenty currently available. Tonight there was a community event. Many people offered to show up. I told them not to, but it's my honor. We have 2 senior residents from the neighborhood. Mrs. Pigler kindly came out, and Rabbi Levine, who's the head of the Council of Orthodox Rabbis of Detroit, he also, a next-door neighbor to this building, were willing to come and support. We figured out if we even use only half of the building for medical, it would still be deficient. But it's very close to the current existing legal non-conforming office, meaning right now, how it's being used, there's more than 13 spaces. Now there's 16 spaces currently in the legal non-conforming office. And if we only use half, we got a number of like 20. Was it 22, 21? When we sat down earlier this week. So we didn't figure out a way how to overcome the parking issue. So again, I'm just based on community need, and the extreme walking conditions, if it could be considered as something unique, that it's not just typical walkability, but heavily walkable. Thank you.
If I could, through the chair.
Yes, Planner Crowe.
We understand the neighborhood and the demographics of the neighborhood, and at best, I can give a 5% credit for walkability, for bike parking, and for public transit. If you do the math on 22 required, that's basically 1 space. So I can give a credit for 1 space due to the nature of the neighborhood and the demographics. That's still far short of what's required. I've made a commitment to the petitioner between now and council to try to sit down and see if we can come up with some innovative way to get closer. Usually within 10% is the measure for the ZBA to consider. Now, ultimately, we don't know how they're going to act on it. But I want to remind the commission, each of us swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, the state of Michigan, and the charter. And unfortunately, as much as we might have personal feelings in favor or against, we have to meet the requirements of the ordinance, and there is a 40% deficiency currently. Even with my one parking space credit, it's still way above the deficiency above 10%. Quite frankly, we have to make an unfavorable recommendation to you. Hopefully, you'll concur that we're bound to do that through the ordinance. But I also made a commitment that let's see what we can put our creative hats on and try to come up with a solution that's more palatable and gets us closer, so he has a chance with council and ultimately the Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe Mr. Griffiths had made reference to a dentist's office where they got creative, eliminated some floor space to get us closer to the parking. So I don't think this is completely dead in the water, but we have an obligation to follow our regulations, and unfortunately it's just too deficient if there's going to be a change of use. If it's illegal non-conforming, they continue operating as is, they can continue to operate, but it's the change of use to a more intense medical office that is putting us in this dilemma. Thank you.
So my question to you is that, do we proceed with voting on this particular site plan, or is that something that you all want to take back and we bring it back at a later date?
We have discussed this with the petitioner. His desire is to have it move forward. We talked about the option of postponement to bring it back. So I think you have to vote on the merits of the existing conditions now, and maybe between now and when it gets to council, we can come up with something that's a little more palatable. But you are duty-bound to vote on what is before you tonight.
Okay. Given that, Commissioner Bernuti.
I have no questions. You know, the information is before us, and as much as I would like to help those who walk on Saturday or that, I just can't in good conscience recommend it.
Commissioner Goodwin-Dye.
I have no questions. I too agree that the space is too small for what he wants to do. And if we can do something creative, that would be great. But we don't want some of the same issues that we have over on Glasgow when they have to go to the, what is it that, I want to say the embassy, but it's not the embassy. They don't have adequate parking, and they park all on the streets and block traffic, and then they're parking across 12 Mile, and people are coming across 12 Mile, which is a safety hazard. So we don't want those things to happen.
Commissioner Griffiths.
Yeah, I went to the site, I looked at the building. It's a really cool building. It's really close. It's really a cool building on too small of a piece of property is the only way I can see it. And I always try to save cool buildings and be creative in how we can reuse them, and I think the city needs to do that. But unfortunately, you get on some of the mile roads and some of these north-south roads, and they're really shallow sites, and they were built in a different time with different rules, and the only way to really maybe make some of these things work is you grab 2 or 3 or 4 of them, combine them, keep a building or build a new building and spread the parking around, and there's just not enough physical, literal real estate on this property to make it work for more intense use. And more intense is more valuable. I understand that from real estate terms, and the medical office is more valuable than an office for an accountant or an architect or whatever. But again, we always try to be creative. What the ordinance has been pretty fair and safe, and I think it's too far away from, when it changes, it's too far away. If it doesn't change, it's acceptable or close to acceptable. So I think that's the way I got to keep looking at it. I can't vote for it either with the way the ordinance reads.
Okay. Commissioner Willis.
I am going to co-sign our colleagues relative to the parking, but I have an additional concern. There's a barrier curve that is between the regular curve and the building itself. I can see its purpose, but my concern would be, in a medical situation, how do you move people out very quickly if they have wheelchairs, any other kind of thing that they would need? And that gives me some concern. I would like to see a plan if there is one, but again, a concern, I don't know if I would vote favorably. I'm going to go with the colleagues and just suggest hope something could be done to address that.
Commissioner Gruber?
I agree the parking is really an issue, especially at a medical facility. You know, people are coming and they're not leaving quickly, and it's going to be an issue. And also about the sidewalk, I thought the same thing. It's a very narrow space.
The main entrance is in the rear.
Yes, but it's you talk about walking, and if you're walking with someone who isn't well, it's a narrow space.
Commissioner Martin?
I agree that this does not meet the current requirements. I also looked at the area, and there are other buildings in that area that are going to have the same problem if any of them want to change. Is this the situation where a designated unit can be, where the old is looked at for the specifications that were in effect when it was done, rather than, there's no way we can accept this the way it is. That I agree wholeheartedly. But what I'm saying is that there are other sections or road, buildings along roads where you're going to run into the same problem if any change is wanted for the zoning of those buildings.
Commissioner, Planner Crowell?
Yes, again, it's a legal nonconforming, can continue to operate as an office. But if you recall, I'll give you a few examples. Down the street where City Center and City Center 2 Plaza is located, they had to purchase homes, one property in, and have it rezoned to vehicular parking to make that work. There's several examples on Southfield Road where the property, residential property was purchased, one lot in some cases two, to create a vehicular parking zone, which also act as a transition between the residents and the property, so nothing could be built there. Recently on 12 Mile, Walgreens also purchased residential lots and converted those into parking, and the vehicular parking is a transition zone. So that is one option that should be considered to accommodate the parking needs of this property. More extreme would be removing part of the structure or removing the interior floor area to get where you want to be. So just because these are shallow depth lots and just because they don't work with our current ordinance doesn't mean there's other options. We created the mixed-use corridor district along the mile roads to allow for greater density and no setbacks, but they still have to meet the parking requirements. So there are options. It's just as proposed with the change of use, with no physical more land, we can't in good conscience recommend favorable. But there are opportunities for some of these more shallow depth lots and older to be redeveloped with the land acquisition that Commissioner Griffiths had mentioned.
Here again, I agree that we can't do anything about it now, but it's just to look at options for other areas, and other areas where it could be same impact. I agree.
Mr. Spence, is there a recommendation?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. With regard to PSP 23-0003, the Planning Department does recommend unfavorable recommendation for the site plan review request of Moshe Goldberg to convert an existing 4,830 square foot building from general office to medical office, property located at 24725 Greenfield Road, the northwest corner of Greenfield Road and George Washington, Section 25 of the city, for the following reasons. Proposed use is a medical office, urgent care facility would require a waiver of 9 parking spaces or 40% of the parking space requirement. 22 required, 13 proposed. Study of surrounding buildings showed none of them have parking spaces available on their lots to accommodate the deficiency on the subject lot. And development features proposed have the potential to cause adverse effects upon adjacent properties as they relate to pedestrian and vehicular traffic safety. Thank you.
Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
I would move for a motion for unfavorable recommendation for PSP 230003.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Willis and second by Commissioner Martin that we accept the unfavorable recommendation for PSP 23-0003. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Spence, can you tell us a little bit about our capital improvement program?
I am actually going to turn over the clicker here to City Planner Crote.
Good evening. So tonight, we're here for a recommendation on our annual capital improvement program. We began this study at your long-range meeting on February 15th, but really the process began in late November, early December, when we reached out to all the departments to compile their proposed projects for the upcoming 6 years, submit them to us so we would be prepared to discuss with you. Planning Commission held a study meeting on March 1st. Last Friday, we made a presentation to the Finance Committee. Tonight, we're doing this for a recommendation and also so that the public is aware of what the proposed plan is. And then on the 27th, this coming Monday, I will be making a presentation to council for their consideration of adoption. To remind everybody, the CIP outlines a schedule of public expenditures for a 6-year period, including the current annual budget. The first year is based on actual budget projections, and years 2 through 6 are projected by each of the departments. It does not address all capital expenditures for the city, but includes physical improvements that are permanent in nature or substantial equipment purchases, usually of $5,000 or more. CIP is beneficial to a community because it allows for a systematic evaluation of all potential projects at the same time, provides coordination between departments, and presents a uniform plan of financing. The plan is also required by the State Planning Enabling Act, which directs the Planning Commission, after adoption of a master plan, shall annually prepare a capital improvements program of public structures and improvements, and it's also required for us to keep our redevelopment ready certification. Again, the plan shall show those public structures and improvements in the general order of their priority within the ensuing 6-year period. Each department of a local unit of government with authority for public structures or improvements shall, upon request, furnish the Planning Commission list plans and estimates of time and cost of those public structures and improvements. We have done this annually. The last one was adopted in April 2022. A full copy of the plan is available in the Planning Department or on the city's website under Resources. Again, this outlines the entire schedule of process, ultimately ending up at the City Council next Monday. The CIP budget categories are typically broken down into 8: equipment, facilities, water and sewer, stormwater and floodplains, parks and recreation, data management, roads and bridges, and pedestrian enhancements. I'll just do a high-level overview. The library has spent the past year restoring hours and services. They typically have 3 priorities for the next year, which are spaces, access, and efficiency and longevity. With regard to spaces, reconfiguring areas within the library to encourage and support collaboration and creativity, responding to the changing work study needs of their patrons, and incorporating technological and advances into space design, and they include equipment and facility improvements estimated at $965,000. With regards to access, they're striving to provide more ways for the community to utilize and enjoy library services regardless of location and hours. And again, they have a list of equipment and facility needs. And efficiency and longevity of the facility includes HVAC enhancements, repairs of doors, fire suppression upgrades, and a key card entry system estimated over $1.3 million. Moving on to the police department, every so many years, they have to continually upgrade their equipment. Many of these ballistic vests are custom specific to a police officer, and they only have a certain lifespan. And so they are constantly rotating their equipment, and they have rotating needs. This also includes the Axon body camera, fleet camera, and taser program. And they have a layout of the costs over the next 6 years. One of the tools that they recently included in their arsenal are license plate readers. And they are able to quickly respond to auto theft or even missing persons or abductions based on these cameras. They've been doing this as a trial period, and they have a much higher arrest rate and solving of crimes based on these cameras. And they would like to continue to do this. They have a partnership with many private businesses that also utilize the same license plate readers, and many other communities in Southeast Michigan have them strategically located at entrances and exits of the community, which helps the police department coordinate when there are criminal activities taking place. There's a need for a general purpose armored vehicle. The current armored vehicle that they use was military surplus, I believe was acquired over 20 years ago. I understand many of the parts aren't even made to service that armored vehicle, and they're trying to get away from that militaristic approach to be more community friendly, but they still have needs in hostage situations or armed gunmen or active shooters to have the protection to get their SWAT team in close when needed in an emergency. And I believe this was just approved by council, but there's a year lag in ordering before they receive delivery. They also have a need for a mobile command center update. Their current one is 20 years old, and they're projecting this to be purchased in fiscal year 24-25. They have ongoing building repairs, upgrade to the Detective Bureau, and this has been pointed out that their crime lab needs many repairs. They have many items that are on the floor that need storage, proper storage, and they like to remodel this area for additional personnel. The fire department keeps a comprehensive list of all of their vehicles and mileage used and makes projections for purchasing based on the mileage. They have invested in vehicles, and they are projecting, again, their needs, and many of these vehicles have a year or more lead time for purchasing. They also have equipment needs similar to the police department. They're continuing to provide better support services for fire personnel, as well as they only have a certain lifespan that they are good for. And then they've looked at their 5 current stations. They feel they have good coverage. However, many are averaging 45 years old, and they all need to have various types of upgrades. And these are the proposed facility upgrades over the next couple years. With regards to cable, 15, and administration, these are some minimal upgrades. They have made some major upgrades in the past. With regards to facilities, there's a need for fire station number 3 boiler and water leak and other hazard detection systems. There is a comprehensive study that is being wrapped up about all the facilities here on campus, so we'll get more information in the future, but these are 2 identified needs in the near term. Motor pool constantly looks at the needs of the various departments, and this is what they're looking for in the upcoming years as far as support vehicles. Water and sewer, they've identified projects in sections 24, 26 for lift station upgrades, underground lift station redesign, water line replacements, Sherwood Village and Washington Heights. And you'll see that, again, one of the reasons we have the CIP is we don't want to be repaving roads and then tearing up the following year for water and sewer, so they do this in concert with each other. They remove the road, they do the infrastructure underground, and then they repave it concurrently with each other. And again, these are similar projects that are overlapping with utility upgrades. And then this is our 6-year projection based on the PACER rating and based on funding that has been identified for roads throughout the city. I believe they're coming at the end of their major bond. I think it was a $99 million bond. This is the last year that they have that additional funding for. So money only goes so far, but this is what they've identified as upcoming needs. Stormwater management continues to evolve based on focus on non-traditional ways to treat stormwater. We also have climate change and more severe storms. EGLE, which is the state regulatory agency, is now requiring that stormwater quality be treated as part of new regulations. And it's always important to coordinate with other departments. And what we do here, trying to recommend and get low-impact design incorporated into our site plans, can have and make a difference on stormwater management. 2 big projects that have been underway is the Tamarack Basin River Restoration Project, as well as LTU Wetlands, the Rouge Green Infrastructure and Tree Planting Project, the GWK Green Infrastructure Program, and the Stormwater Utility Study, which is important to identify future funding sources for these utilities. And these are project locations. With regards to data management, Technology Services is responsible for 3 major core competency, which includes availability of resources, uptime, and security. And these are some ongoing costs that they have identified as part of annual maintenance. And document management software, Cisco switch replacements, which tie the phone to the computer, and other needs of the department have been identified. Parks and Recreation provides numerous recreation programs and services throughout the city, and they've made many recent capital improvements to projects over the last couple of years, and have recently updated their master plan. These are some of the investments since 2017 throughout the city. Beechwoods Recreation Center, Carpenter Lake Nature Preserve, which will be undergoing a major renovation this summer. Recently, Bovaric Woods Park, which also has been identified as a potential trailhead on our 9-mile Greenway corridor. So we'll be looking at things like permanent restroom facilities and more enhancements as a trailhead for the corridor. Is strategically located in the center of the city, but also strategically located along the proposed 36-mile corridor. from I-75 to I-275. There's been playground enhancements, there's been conversion of former basketball courts and tennis courts to racquetball and,
Pickleball.
I'm sorry?
Pickleball.
Pickleball, it was on the tip of my tongues. Yeah, Sims and Miller Park has seen some major rehab, and then there have been some improvements to Evergreen Hills Golf Course and additional golf path paving coming this fall. This is a comprehensive list of proposed projects, and then moving forward into the future. And finally, but not least, our pedestrian enhancements. And you've heard me say this many times through the course of the master plan 5 years ago and our current master plan. There is a lot of support from the public, and as we continue to build more pathways and connected pathways, it just shows the areas that we have gaps in our system. These are quotes from respondents' frustrating experience, particularly where sidewalks end abruptly. More continuous sidewalks and better lighting are needed, safe and continuous bike paths, less gaps with the sidewalks system, more lights, no sidewalks or inconsistent sidewalks, no sidewalks that connect to other sidewalks. With no safe direct access, I have no incentive to walk, bike, or take public transit. And ultimately, everybody is in support of more continuous bike paths. So this is being supported by the residents and the public here. And sidewalks and pathways were always looked at as more of a utilitarian, recreational asset, but now we know it's important to health and wellness. It's important to social equity, to providing lower income individuals access to resources including jobs, education, municipal campus, recreation, and health services. You've been familiar with many of our public placemaking, including art installations, the bike path improvements in the city center, the gaps in our sidewalk system. We're really excited about our monarch butterfly that's due to be out this spring. We also have secured a landscape architect who's going to do a butterfly garden around it. We have a partnership with Eaton Corp. Council recently approved the easement for that project, and we have many more art projects that will be coming to fruition this year and in the near future. We've been guided by our master plan and many sub-area plans. We continue to expand and connect our entire pathway system. We've recently completed 1.5 miles of additional pathways, and we have targeted additional pathways along 9 Mile Corridor, and we're working on the Valley View and Rouge Trail Corridor off of 12 Mile. City Center has kind of led the forefront on trail enhancements and pedestrian improvements, and we continue to develop our 5-year master plan. And then our recent focus is the 9 Mile Greenway Corridor, working with our partners, Farmington Hills, City of Southfield, Oak Park, Ferndale, and Hazel Park, to connect a 26 up to 36 mile corridor and connect I-75 to 275, Hazel Park to Farmington Hills. Ultimately, our goal is to connect to the regional networks. We can connect to the Joe Louis Greenway down Livernois at 9 Mile in Ferndale, and we connect to the 275 trail in Farmington Hills, which gets you all the way down to the Lake Erie Metro Park to the south and gets you up north via the Meadowbrook M5 pathway to the Michigan Airline Trail, which ultimately will connect the Lake to Lake Trail, Lake Michigan to Lake St. Clair. So we are well on our way by making our improvements to connect to major existing bike and trail networks in southeast Michigan. I believe we recently found out that, which I believe is on council's agenda Monday night, that we received MDOT financing for putting 9 Mile on a road diet from Evergreen to Losser. That will allow the current 4 lanes to be brought down to 3, the center turn lane, and extend the southern curb line by 10 feet to grant an additional 10 feet of green space to allow us to continue our bike path from Prescott to Losser. So then we'll have a whole mile of bike path in an area that had nothing at all. And then we're working on some earmark funding to go Evergreen east to the Mixing Bowl and connect to the 9 Mile DDA corridor. So we have some exciting proposals in the near future. We also, I mentioned, is looking at the Valley Woods Trailhead at 12 Mile. Currently, you have to go down Streamwood to the cul-de-sac. There's maybe 1 parking space if you're a visitor. It's gated. There's a do not trespass sign up. There is a small easement that was granted to get us down to the DNR-funded bridge across the Rouge River, but it's not very user-friendly to anybody other than the people who live immediately adjacent to it. To take away the angst of the neighbors on Streamwood, we're proposing a small trailhead off of 12 Mile, a parking lot, maybe 4 to 6 spaces with a kiosk and a trailhead, making the flat portion of that area accessible for a loop pathway, and then more able-bodied people can traverse down some stairs across the boardwalk and then connect to the trail system. So we've been working on some cost estimates to put us in a position to apply for future funds. And ultimately, our goal is to connect 12 Mile to 10 Mile, 2 linear miles along the Rouge River, connect with the existing pathway at Civic Center and McDonald Tower, and provide a 4 Mile loop system in the heart of the city, which I think will be a regional draw. With the 696 road improvements, at least the underpass will be widened for future pedestrian connections under there. And then we have to work on the M5 and the other highway split there to get people underneath the highway. But if we're able to solve that nut, we'll have a continuous pathway all the way down to 10 Mile. We continue to develop branding and wayfinding throughout our many sub-area districts. We have a streetscape furnishing identified for Centropolis, for City Center, for the DDA, and then for all other pedestrian and public transit improvements. We just received a shipment of about 25 benches and 26 benches, 25 trash receptacles that we'll be installing in the spring. I believe 9 benches and 8 trash receptacles were installed last week. So we're going to continue to chip away at our bus stop and pedestrian enhancements throughout the city in strategic locations based on priority. These are our master plans that have guided city center development that we're utilizing throughout the city. Our ultimate goal is to connect the city center to the new Northland redevelopment, which has a proposed 1.5 mile perimeter pathway to connect the DDA to the city center, to connect Ascension Providence Hospital to LTU, and to connect the new residents to the municipal services here at the municipal campus. And then a few years ago, we did a comprehensive study of all 275 bus stops throughout the city, and we've been implementing 12 to 15 improvements per year based on available funding. And we've been able to utilize Metro Fund acts for public improvements in the rights-of-way. We have proposals to make the front lawn loop more accessible for many events and for patrons throughout the year. And I guess lastly, with regards to sustainability, Alex has assisted in identifying these composting and recyclable bins that are solar panel, provide power. We have a proposal for 7 purchases of 2 to 3 units each that hopefully if we get funded, you'll start seeing them around campus. One would be for food waste, one would be for recycling, and a third could possibly be for composting. We want to be the leaders. If we're going to educate the public on what little things we can do to help reduce and reuse and recycle, we want to be on the forefront here at campus. How have we been recycling? Well, the national recycling average is about 32%. The city of Southfield is around 30%. Total recycling rate in Michigan is 19%, so we're above the state of Michigan, but we're behind the national. We're about mid-range for other communities in southeast Michigan. But I think I told you that the 30% only represents single-family units. So if we have 50% of all of our housing units are single-family, the other 50% are multiple family. We have no comprehensive recycling program in multiple family. So there's a lot of room for growth, a lot of room for improvement. And then last fall, we did a sustainable survey to all 650 employees in the city. We had 75 respondents, 15 questions were asked. 73% of respondents value the importance of recycling. Many of the employees were encouraged in doing more here at the city and made some recommendations on things that we can do. So with that, that's a high-level overview of a 3.5-hour presentation by all the departments, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Commissioner Martin?
None at this moment.
Commissioner Gruber? Commissioner Willis?
No questions, but this is well presented. It looks well. You could look at it and immediately see where you need to be, and it gives it focuses well. Compliments to you and your staff. No further questions, though.
Yeah, I just want to, of course, it's a team effort, but I always want to give a shout out to Sarah Mullally because she's the project manager. She's the one that has to wrestle all this information from the various departments. She's been doing it for many years. We have good cooperation now, but it wasn't always that easy. But this is only as good as all the departments and their time and effort, and obviously all of your insight and the rest of the staff. But I will pass along your accolades. Thank you.
Commissioner Griffith?
Yeah, just along those same lines, I remember it was a little disjointed in the beginning, and now it's looking very comprehensive, plus there's built examples, and then you're getting the master planning and all the stuff in place to keep getting funding and just keep really filling in the missing pieces. So it's a giant project. It's looking really good, coming together.
Commissioner Goodwin-Dye? Commissioner Bernuti?
Nothing to add, but this is just amazing, and I commend everyone who's on this project. It's exciting, just the thought of what we have to look forward to.
And I concur with all of the other commissioners. In the short time that I've been on the Planning Commission, I've seen the evolution of this project, of this process, and I've seen the department personnel rally around, and I think that the comprehensiveness, and I think that the uniformity across departments, it enhances what our city is capable of doing. So I thank all of them. I thank your team for the hard work that goes into nudging everybody along to move towards this. So, and as a resident of the city, I look forward to it. It gives me something to be excited about and to share with my neighbors. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'd be looking for a favorable recommendation for adoption to the City Council.
Commissioner Martin?
I did have a comment. I was just writing some information at the time. I think the report is very good, excellent. I just have a question, and we have the plan. Do we have the actual to compare it to? Let's say like how we compared last year's SIP to what was actually spent? I know that's the way that the report is done, the way the information.
So
makes it
fiscal
next-
services actually prepares a fiscal report on the actual expenditures. And I don't think anybody's actually done a side-by-side comparison. Like the master plan is a guide
Yeah.
for future decisions. The capital improvement plan is a guide so that council can make informed decisions on the budget and know what is needed this year versus what might be coming down the pipe. So the plan is a guide. The actual expenditures are based on what funding is secured and what the needs are that could change. And so fiscal services and city administration provides the actual expenditures report. And it would be a large undertaking to compare, but it would be some akin to the apples versus oranges in many ways. But I'm sure if you'd like to volunteer to do the side-by-side, you do a good job. All kidding aside.
Yeah, I do realize that it is a massive undertaking, and it's just another tool. As you say, you're looking at a budget versus actual when you're actually comparing two different fiscal years and that, but.
The other thing I will say is city administration has come a long way to support that fiscal services will not consider a budget request if there's not a component CIP sheet supporting that.
Okay.
And quite frankly, some of the struggles were in the past that this wasn't produced every year. It was produced by one person in accounting and not this thorough development where we have input from everyone. And that's where some of the growing pains came into play. But now, I think after doing this several years now, we have buy-in from all the departments and everybody sees the value of this. And we do coordinate with fiscal services with regard to budget approvals.
Yeah, and that does give you more of a comparison when you have the SIP versus what the expense was. So, yeah, it's good. I like it. It's great. I'm not going to volunteer to do it right now,
Yeah.
but it is a good idea. It's great.
Mr. Spence might have a formal recommendation, or do we just?
Well,
If
before
I may,
that,
if you go one more slide, Terry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's actually the
All right. There we
resolution.
go.
before that, commissioners, are there any other questions or comments? No. Mr. Spence, can I call for the recommendation?
Yeah, so the resolution is before you on the screen. Basically, what the planning department is requesting is that the planning commission recommend approval for fiscal year 2023, 2024 through fiscal year 2028, 2029 capital improvement program draft dated March 22nd, 2023.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the recommendation to adopt the resolution?
To the chair, motion to accept the resolution to adopt the SIP improvement plan.
Support.
As presented.
It's been moved by Commissioner Martin and second by Commissioner Willis that we accept the recommendation to adopt the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Approval of minutes, Mr. Spence.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So you have two sets of minutes, February 8th and February 15th.
To the chair,
Yes.
motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of February 8th and the long-range planning meeting of February 15th, 2003.
May I make a point? The February 8th special meeting, they had Commissioner Gunn, as present and absent on the minutes for February 8th.
Right here. All right,
You're good.
yeah. No, she is.
Yeah, I do show that, yes, that she was present on February, no, I show that you were excused on the 8th. Were you here on the 8th?
I was here on the 8th.
Okay,
It said
then,
that she was excused as well as, and that was That was the
right, yeah,
meeting that,
Oh, no, that was
I did
that
it,
was the
yeah.
meeting
Commissioner
that
Martin. So
Commissioner
I was
Martin.
absent.
Yeah, she was absent.
I
Yeah,
was absent.
that's what I thought.
I was in Iowa.
Okay, so yeah, she was
I
absent.
was in Iowa.
Yeah. And that's on my minutes at home.
Okay.
Motion
Well,
to
thank you.
approve the minutes with the correction about Chairman Gunn.
Okay,
I'd second that.
all right. So it's been moved by Commissioner Martin and second by Commissioner Bernuti that we approve the minutes of February 8th and February 15th. All in favor?
That's correct.
As corrected. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we're going to open the public comment section. If there's any public that wishes to address the commission, you may come and stand here. A person addressing the commission shall be limited to a period of 3 minutes, unless such period of time is extended by the presiding officer or by a majority of vote of the commission. The following rules of procedure have been established for all speakers. No speaker shall make personal and pertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or planning commission member that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or planning commission member performs his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language towards any individual when addressing the planning commission. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the planning commission refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the orderly conduct of public meeting and the planning commission, and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may take whatever actions is necessary to remove the person from the meeting. Call-in number for communication will be provided the night of the meeting. Good evening. Please state your name and your address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening to your honorable body. My name is Diana Pegler. My address is 15640 George Washington Drive, Southfield. And my comment is regarding item number 3 on the agenda, the PSP 23-0003. From a community standpoint, Mr. Goldberg and I have had several conversations about his proposed development. While I am not opposed to the use, I totally agreed with the deficiencies that this honorable body brought up. There are some additional concerns regarding the proposed plan that I expressed to Mr. Goldberg. One is access to the property and exiting from the property. One of the things that I used to do is be president of the Southfield Homeowners Association. And I don't want to see anything else happen in the subdivision that would be invasive or more commercial. Traffic is one of the issues also. I remember when Melfar Ford dealership was on Greenfield, oftentimes those streets were blocked with a lot of cars parking on them. And so with this particular development and having such limited parking, you're going to have that parking on those streets. It's just inevitable. I heard a suggestion that maybe, if people sold and you could create a parking lot, well, that's invasive to the community. And it takes away the character, and it could possibly impact the value of the properties that are immediately close to that particular development. But I assured Mr. Goldberg that as a longtime resident of the city, I would continue to have dialogue with him and try to work with him to see what we could do to facilitate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before she leaves, can I ask the speaker to I just wanted to comment, this is Diane Pegler. She's not only an old friend of mine, but a person who's been very, very involved in the community. Just wanted to acknowledge it and thank your community activism for a lot of years. And so from me to you, just hello, and I'm glad to see you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Yisrael Levin. I live at 15558 George Washington, just two doors down from the proposed building. I've, thank God, been living in Southfield, living on the block for 30 years. And my grandfather lived in the house prior to us for 20 years before that. So our family's been residents of Southfield for a long time. I would like to begin by thanking the commission for all that they do, and thanking the planners for working with Mr. Moshe Goldberg on this project. As you all understand, as I heard from the comments, you all understand that it's quite important for our community to be able to have a medical office building or urgent care or whatever the plan would be within walking distance for us. We do understand and respect very much all of the issues that the commission has brought up with the parking and other things. But we would just like that the Moshe Goldberg will work with the commission and work with the planners, as the planner said, to work further in order to try to help our community with the needs. We understand that piece of property has a lot of variances I saw on the sign, but that was when they widened Greenfield, and all of the years before, this is decades ago, that they made exceptions for that building. But we have to continue to move forward to service the community that lives in that area with whatever they need. We just want everything to work out, and we appreciate very much what everyone is doing. And we just work towards the goal of servicing our community along with the city. We respect the city very much, and we just want to work forward on this project. It's a very important project to us. And we hope that the city recognizes this, and we will work together with the planners to try to develop something that will be acceptable by the committee, and God willing, something will work out in the future. Thank you very much for all your time. I'm sitting here for an hour. I see what it means to be in this commission. Thank you very, very much for all that you do. We appreciate it and respect it. May you all continue to help service the great community of Southfield. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Commissioner Martin, you had a comment?
My only comment was to Ms. Pegler, in that not only has she worked with the city of Southfield, she's worked with me on the group where was the Southfield Homeowners Communication Coalition of all the Homeowners Association, along with Ms. Bermudi and Mr. Willis. So we've all worked together before, and thank her for her time with the city.
Okay. Commissioner Willis?
I think I've made my comment, but I believe Ms. Bernuti wanted to.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Levin for understanding our position and the perimeters that we have to work within with the city. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
very much.
Okay, closing the public comment section, and I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Spence for council item update.
Yes, thank you. If you recall at the last meeting, we had a conversation and update with regard to the April 17th, 2023 joint meeting with the City Council. The chair directed the rest of the commission to come to this meeting this evening with ideas, items that you would want to share with the council on the 17th. And so this is now that opportunity that the chair has provided to the commission to provide those thoughts.
Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Bernuti.
I would like to ask the council, what can we do, if anything, to speed them up on what we've recommended to them? It seems to take them just so long before, they get the ball rolling.
Okay. Commissioner Goodwin-Dye?
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Griffiths?
I'm pro-development, and I will continue to be pro-development and redevelopment, especially in this city. There's a lot of not in my backyard recently, which happens when people are unsure of change or just maybe have the wrong impression of how a project's going to impact everything else. But this is a metropolitan Detroit, heavily developed area. We also have the rare areas of this large city that are kind of less developed and wooded, and it's a pretty good mix here. with the zoning code and all these very long discussions that we have weekly, I think are really looking out for the bigger picture and the greater good and the public health, safety, and welfare. And I think development and redevelopment are a very good thing. And so it's something that people want to keep investing in this city. It's never easy to get things through. It's never rubber stamp. It's always a big dialogue, and we're all working together, and you know, everybody's ideas help inform the decisions and come up with a good result, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Willis?
Thank you. I think cities are developing in unusual ways. Most cities want to become more dense. I'd like to get an idea of what council looks at as the city of tomorrow for the city of Southfield. And I think Mr. Crow gives us a great idea of what it is. I'd really like to hear the math say this is what we're looking at. So I'd like to be able to partner with them, ask the specific questions. And one item that would be specific would be we look at site plan reviews. And I think it would be just a streaming of the process if that process was turned over to us, again, as Mr. Crow suggested. But I think it's a way to move forward quickly.
If I could, we're taking some notes, and we're going to try to put these in bullet point form as a point of discussion. But I think it's always important how we frame the questions or comments with council. So we'll try to, I know we got a few more comments, but I'm writing some notes. I'm trying to hit the key words that will set the agenda for discussion. And then hopefully we'll get to some of those answers, or at least we'll get an inkling from the council where they're thinking. But I do think that we have to be careful of how we craft the question, and then we'll see how the response comes out.
Commissioner Gruber?
Since I'm the newbie here, I'm just looking forward to the meeting to just gather more information.
Okay. Commissioner Martin?
Okay. I think the council needs to be aware of the issues that the citizens raise to us and what we responded to the citizens with if we provided a response. As an example is the Windflower and the traffic study. They need to know that 9944 100% of the problems with traffic was at Webster, not Windflower, and that the issue with, what's the name of the coffee? Starbucks. The issue with Starbucks is something above and beyond any developer of that lot is going to have. And also, in looking at projects, we take into consideration the area, not just the residents. The example of that is the 9 Mile. They have concerns about the gymnastics being taught there because they're talking residential when it's along a commercial street. So, you know, that type of thing. They need to look at residential versus commercial and the impacts.
Okay, I have several. I'll start with making sure that the city council understands the parameters by which the planning commission makes decisions. We have clearly cut parameters, and I want to make sure that the city council is aware of those parameters. The second thing I'd like to have discussed is I'd like to understand when and why the city council does not accept one of our recommendations. And the last thing I'd like is a review of the decision made, the dissent decisions made in November regarding the Culver project. I'd like an explanation of thought so that we understand why that project was denied. I'd like to understand that.
Okay, I've got my notes. We might not be able to cover all these topics, or we might only begin to have discussion. I just want to remind the commission, our job is to look at the ordinance and make recommendations based on the ordinance. The elected officials are going to be taking a little bit different look at it, and they are more apt to respond to concerns from neighbors, and we have to understand. I would ask that we not focus in on one particular case, but use examples, generic examples of certain issues that keep coming up. I think someone mentioned we seem to have more of a tendency of NIMBYism in more recent times than I can remember in a while. It's not that it's brand new, but it seems like I look at the common denominator. In each of these, there was a vacant parcel that has been undeveloped for many years. And people like it quiet. People don't like change. And now all of a sudden, it's the fear of the unknown, or the fear of issues that never really materialize. Our job is to look at traffic impacts and to look at noise and sound and all these other things, and where reasonable, try to mitigate reasonable concerns to protect the neighborhood. But we also have to look at the larger picture, as I think Mr. Martin had indicated. So we'll do our best to frame these questions as talking points to start the discussion. Especially, I want to be careful that Culver's is going to be coming back for further consideration, and that we don't upset the apple cart before we need to. So I think we can frame some of the issues where ultimately our recommendations are for the benefit of the council to make informed decisions. And we don't always have to agree. I can point out one scenario where we made a recommendation that the commission went against, again, to my frustration and angst, but I have to respect your opinion on that, and my job is to provide the information so you can make an informed decision. So it happens. And I don't want anyone to be naive that in the reality of people who need to get elected in election years, that sometimes that might creep into the decision-making of those elected officials. But our job is to pass the baton so they can make informed decisions, and my job is to be an advocate for all the people and to mitigate any potential negative impacts, either seen or unforeseen, so that we can all live in harmony. We don't take finances into consideration, but I know that if we're not a dynamic, evolving city, our tax base will continue to deteriorate. And we want to be vibrant and relevant in the future. We want to attract new individuals to live here, and we want to keep our aging population, our older adults in their homes or within the same, community where religious institution, family, medical is here. So we have to be proactive. That's why we do the master planning. We look and forecast. I try to bring best practices to you all the time. Sometimes we have to be fluid and reactive to situations that are out of our control. And when issues like adult use regulation, marijuana, and gas station conversions come up, they might not be the most exciting dynamic thing, but we try to provide the best possible regulations to protect the users as well as the adjacent property owners, and that are not only good for now, but for in the future. So we have to keep that all in mind when we have this discussion with council. And they do have a meeting afterwards. They can continue to have dialogue, and we can meet afterwards, but we'll try to frame this that everybody has an opportunity to introduce themselves. Many of you are new. The council can introduce yourselves, and then we'll have some talking points, and hopefully we'll have a good, earnest discussion within the hour that we've allocated today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Spence, is there anything miscellaneous?
The only comment that I have is that your next meeting is on April 12th.
Okay. Is there anything for the good of the order? Given none, I adjourn the meeting at 8:40.